Hey everyone, I'm going to show you how to do Lady Vashj as a Prot Paladin today, and we'll start off with the spec. So this is a spec I use, it's the 10-41-10 spec. I use this spec for every fight in tier 5 raids, but there's probably a better spec you can use for this particular fight. This is pretty much what I'd recommend here. Main thing you want is Pursuit of Justice. There's a ton of movement on this fight, and Pursuit of Justice will come in very handy for that. And let's just hop right into the clip. So we start off with the pull. My first thing I'm going to do, I'm just getting my Judgment of Wisdom up, and then I'm just basically going to be doing a little bit of DPS for this phase. I can also throw out some spot heals occasionally and watch for freedoms on static charge targets when they get entangling roots at the same time. My particular role on this fight is tanking the MC'd people in the final phase, running around and collecting Tainted Cores, making sure those get to the generators, picking up any Nagas I can, both if our Feral Druid and our Warrior aren't able to get them first, and then they generally just taunt them off me, and hodging Striders and getting Judgment of Wisdom on them. So this phase is pretty simple. You can tank Vashj over by the stairs. That way you get a little more DPS time. When she transitions to phase 2, she'll have to run and you can DPS her that whole time. We found that a lot of people were having trouble with the positioning and we had a lot of avoidable deaths when we were trying that strategy. And our damage is pretty high, so we didn't see the need to keep trying to push to tank her over there. So we ended up just tanking her in the middle here. If your guild is struggling on damage, you probably should tank her by the stairs though to get that extra little bit. Alright, so we get our phase transition here. So as you can see over here, nothing's going to spawn for quite a while. So we're just going to be looking. So here we actually had a hunter die, so I had to go buff him, rebuff him when he got rezzed. But then we're just going to come over here, kill some elementals, help out on those. There's not too much going on at this point in the fight. And so my main job in this phase within our guild, some guilds are going to do it differently, but in our guild, I handle all the Tainted Cores. I go down and loot them so that all the DPS can just focus on DPSing everything. Then I throw them to one of our hunters, and then the hunter throws it to a healer that's nearby. And here you can see a Naga spawned, so none of our other tanks were nearby, so I just taunted that. And then when they got over here, they just taunted it off me. So now I'm free to go help out on Striders with Hodge and Judgment of Wisdom and look for the Tainted Elementals. So our first Tainted spawned, and they're going to put a poison dot on one person at a time in your raid. They cast it every few seconds. So what I do, I actually just move my cursor all around and spam my Mouseover Cleanse macro everywhere. And then as soon as I see which target the poison actually landed on, I cleanse them. But it can do a bit of damage, so you want to make sure you cleanse that pretty quickly. So as you can see, I run down here, I loot it, and throw it up to our hunter. And the priest was who we wanted to dunk it here, but he was slightly too far away, so I had to come over and assist so he could throw it to me and I could dunk it. So here I just ran over, I threw a Judgment of Wisdom on the Strider. That's pretty important for all the range. It's going to help keep their mana up, let them do a bit more damage. So I try to drop a Judgment of Wisdom on the Strider anytime I can. And as you can see with that elite, I also grabbed that before any of the other tanks were able to get there. So always be looking for elites and look at your Judgment or your Hodge cooldown. Drop that anytime you can on a Strider. It's going to be really helpful for your ranged, since they can just sit there. Whoever the kiter is going to be able to just nuke, get some pretty good threat on it. So again, there, dropped the Hodge, dropped the Judgment of Wisdom, and we're cleansing as we run over here. Cleansing anybody we can. And I'll also have my macro for the cores in the description. It's a pretty nice macro. It just uses the core and it whispers the person that you threw the core to. So here we actually let one water ellie through. People were kind of sleeping on that one. Ideally, you don't want any to go through at all. And anytime we have downtime, we just help out on these Quillfang elites, try to get a little extra damage in them so they can get down quicker. That just frees everybody else up to go kill water ellies and potentially assist on the Strider. Though generally it's just going to be melee that are on the elites. So here, we actually had a missed call. Somebody called that it was northeast and it was actually southeast. So you can see I run up to northeast and then I have to run back here. But it didn't end up mattering too much. So again, I just come down here, throw it to the hunter immediately. And I actually started kind of running the wrong direction here. I thought we had somebody over here already that was going to be able to get it. The core was actually thrown to a rogue there. The hunter should have just saved it and thrown it to me at the generator. Right now the rogue's looking through his bags to try to find the cores. So I would definitely stress to your fellow raiders to have a macro ready to go with a hotkey that they can press quickly, because you saw there it took him like maybe 6 or 7 seconds to throw me the core. That should be pretty much instant. And always watching these water ellies. We can do pretty good burst damage occasionally when the cooldowns are up with Avenger Shield and Judgment. So they don't have too much HP, so you can definitely be a game changer on those sometimes if you're watching those. And as you can see there, I had a lot of trouble looting this water elemental. From certain angles, they're actually really hard to loot, so just be kind of prepared for that. Ended up having to just change my angle there and was able to loot it a lot easier. So here we throw it up top, and normally we're just gonna get this last core in place and save it for a good timing, but since the Strider had just died when we were about to throw it to the last core, we actually just dunk it right away here. And our mage was actually out of line of sight, so I came over here in line of sight of the mage. I was telling the hunter to throw it to me so then I could throw it to the mage, but he ended up throwing it to this Shadow Priest, so then the mage actually had to come out of line of sight, so that was a little bit inefficient, but it worked out. And so here we just pop Lust and we try to get down the rest of the ads. Just a few Ellies to kill here. This one got bursted super hard. I was expecting my shield to go off and then I was gonna finish it off with a tick or two of Consecrate, but our Boomkin bursted him and that didn't happen. So here I'm waiting for mind controls to go out. And you're gonna get either 1 or 2 mind controls. I guess you could get 0, 2 potentially. I'm not sure if I've seen 0 yet, but I'm not totally sure what causes you to get less mind controls. I think it may be when it's targeting like a Thornling, or if it gets grounded or something, but you will notice sometimes you'll only get 1 mind control. And so here I'm just picking up both of the mind controls, and once you have threat on them, you want to just stop attacking them, because otherwise you're just going to kill them, and it's also just more damage for the healers to heal in an already chaotic phase. So once you have good threat on them and you've gotten them away from everybody, you just want to stand there basically. It's very easy. And you can see there I actually sappered them to get threat because they weren't coming right away. So that is another thing you can do. And here we actually only get one mind control. And this is kind of a nice trick you can do. When you're casting a vendor shield, you can just move your camera around. You can't go anywhere anyway. So I'm casting a vendor shield on him to get threat on him, and I'm moving my camera around so I can look around and see where the other mind control is. In this case, there wasn't another mind control. So that's easy. We just solo tank a mage over here. And mages are usually pretty nice because they'll just spam Blizzard and Flame Strike and stuff a lot of the time and not really do a whole lot. And when you're tanking the mind control people, big thing you want to be aware of is like where the poison's at and where everybody else is at and where Vashj is headed. So when their mind control ends, you want them to be in a spot where they're not going to just immediately die to poison, or where they're like around a bunch of people, so there's a high probability or a higher probability that a poison could spawn on them as they get released from mind control. And also try and keep them in a position where they're going to be able to just DPS Vashj right away once they get out. You don't want to have them super far away from the boss and they have to like run up to Vashj just to be able to DPS again. And here I actually messed up. Our Boomkin hibernated our Feral Druid. I should have been on top of cleansing this. So that's another thing. You can run into some really unusual things that you normally don't have to worry about cleansing when you got mind controls going out. Hibernate is not something I'm normally looking for to cleanse, but I should have been paying attention to that. And anytime a druid gets mind controlled, that's definitely something you want to be looking for, that hibernate, because our Feral Druid just sat a full hibernate. I could have easily just cleansed him there if I had noticed that and gotten a lot more damage. So again, try to leave people above 50%, just do enough damage to them that you have threat on them. And so here, I dropped a Vendor's Shield and threw down a Consecrate on top of the Feral Druid, so I know I'm going to have threat on him. Nobody else is really going to be able to out-threat that once he gets a couple ticks of that Consecrate. So I felt like my threat was good there, and I just ran straight to the mage to pick up threat on him, because I figured the Feral was going to be following me very shortly, and there he is. And I always forget to turn off my Omnibar for this fight, so that's why the weird timers are on top of my Consecrate and stuff. That's just for my holy arena PvP that I do, and I always forget to turn off Omnibar on this fight. And yeah, so as you can see at the end there, I started to bring the MCs back so they'd be in a good position to get back on Vashj and start DPSing again. And this was a really quick fight for us. Generally, this is going to be a much longer fight, especially if you're new to the fight. It could be a couple extra minutes of this. But those are the key points. This is a really cool fight, I think, because your role is very different in this fight than any other fight. Most fights you're just, you're just tanking, sitting in one spot, tanking the whole time. But this one's really cool. You get to move all over the place. Your role is constantly changing with the MCs. There's so much variation on what can happen. But yeah, I think this is probably pretty much the best role a Prot Paladin can fill in this fight, but it'll vary guild to guild. In some guilds you might even be tanking Vashj yourself. I will have a gear set up in the description that'll work for you if that's what your role is going to be. Otherwise, I'd recommend more of like a spell power heavy build if you're going to be in a role that's more similar to mine. And if you guys have any questions, hit me up anytime. And thank you for watching. See you next time.